Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction and thank you for having me. So let's dive in. Right. As Michael said, reactive attachment disorder or really afraid disorder, part 2, healing the fear that hides.
Mary, I cannot see your screen yet.
Okay, so let's see. Well, because I forgot to hit the share button. Well, that's a problem. Let's try this again. All right. And let's get to this thing. There we go. Can you see it now?
I can. It's not in presentation mode, but I can see it. There you go. Now
there we
I'm
go.
talking.
So close. I'm sorry. Person over 50 working Zoom. Thanks for your patience. All right. Reactive attachment disorder or really afraid disorder, part 2, healing the fear that hides. Once again, I'm going to invite us all to approach with curiosity, which will keep our cortex, our thinking brain engaged. When we approach with certainty, it turns on our fear center, whether we wanted to or not. This is a request. That means we need to be a little bit brave here. We're going to want to naturally lean into things that interest us, but our fear center is going to want to shut down things that are new. That's its job, to slow us down and shut it down. I'm going to invite us to have a little courage and just lean out instead of shutting down. That will allow us all to keep learning and growing because everyone here has something to contribute, which is actually why you all are on this call, to help one another with the important work you do. Kelly Romanowski reminds us that people who need love the most will ask for it in the most unloving ways oftentimes. And so last week, to help us see through that, we switched our focus from what's wrong with you to what happened to you, which is a trauma-informed response, and then to, and what did you do to survive? It is connecting with this survival skill. We're even asking the question, where might someone learn this behavior and how might it have kept them safe? That's going to help us get to the heart of reactive attachment disorder. Kara also sent out last week a handout that looks at moving from trauma-informed to trauma-responsive, and it looks at it from a variety of perspectives. So I wanted to let you know that is available. Eliana Gill teaches us that everything an abused person does after the abuse is designed to give them a sense of safety. When she was writing about this in the early 90s, we didn't have the concept that Stephen Porges introduced to us called neuroception, which we now call felt safety, which is the ability to feel safe within your being. And so felt safety is in fact that internal feeling in our body that allows us to have a sense of comfort and security. It is also the roots to our tree. It provides the stability we need to attach and regulate. And it's often governed by our limbic system, which is in charge of felt safety, attachment, regulation, the word FAR. And this is so important for reactive attachment because this is the part of the brain that is damaged by trauma and results in reactive attachment disorder, or the grown-up version, borderline personality disorder. That's the bad news. The good news is this is the part of the brain most able to be regrown through neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. So we're going to look at some ways we can do that today. The first one I call the anger onion, and it is to look at what is underneath the anger. What we now know from neuroscience is that sadness takes our energy. We probably know that from life itself. And fear can actually freeze us. It can put us on those bottom rungs of freeze submit on that fear cascade. But anger gives us energy. So to keep us safe, we are actually hardwired that when we get the first hint of sadness or fear, our brain smashes us with anger. So the next time you're having road rage, see if you can peel your anger onion and see what's your sadness and what's your fear or worry. And why does that matter? It matters because the worry is what's driving it, the fear. So if we put in the intervention at the fear level, we actually will get an intervention that will take the anger away. If we put it in at the anger level, we often unintentionally throw gasoline on the fire. So Marsha Linehan, way back in the day before we could see inside the brain, was working with people struggling with borderline personality disorder. And she came up with a 4-tiered approach that actually helped them. And we now know what she was doing was healing their limbic system. The first part of her 4-tiered approach was mindfulness, which we now know actually heals and helps regrow the felt safety part of the limbic system. She also worked on interpersonal effectiveness, which helped the attachment part of the limbic system. She worked on distress tolerance, lengthening your fuse, which helped the regulation part. And once she lengthened your fuse, she also helped you emotionally regulate, which we now know is pure regulation. Regulation doesn't just come from our emotions. It is felt through our whole body. Thank you again, Marsha Linehan and Stephen Porges. She also introduced us to something called wise mind, which was not letting our reason get the best of us or our emotions get the best of us. We now know from neuroscience, she was helping us have our cortex and our limbic system coordinate and work together, because there's a part of our cortex in charge of regulation and a part of our limbic system, and they need to fit together like a hand in a glove in order for it to work best. So how do we bring some mindfulness into our lives? You can do grounding. Just literally noticing what's happening around you is very helpful. Emotion regulation is something we actually get from one another. It's a gift we give one another. In fact, if you think of something you do to calm yourself and you follow that memory as far back as you can go, there's a safe other at the very end of that memory. Maybe someone who did this with you or taught this to you the first time. And that's what the body's recalling, the visceral body memory of being with a safe other. Distress tolerance is reminding ourselves we can do it, we can keep going. Thank you, Beyonce. And finally, we have agency, which is the ability to have power with people. First introduced, I think, through relational cultural theory from the women at the Stone Center at the time, Wellesley College, and some of them also worked at Harvard. We now know that when we're trying to out-reason someone, we're trying to have power over them. When we're using our emotions to hold people captive or get them to do what we want, we're also having power over. But when we have power with, we engage our wise mind and the wise mind of the people we're serving and supporting. We help all of our brains coordinate. Power with helps with coordination and connection. So I use this picture for that interpersonal effectiveness. And all of these people are cooking. My guess is they're probably cooking for a large group as well. When we do cooking, it's actually one of the best ways to heal the limbic system. So that's a great intervention right there. The other thing we're going to look at is when we're healing that limbic system and healing trauma in general. One, how do we help people not feel alone in the moment? This is a gift we can give each other right now during these very trying COVID times. Number two, how do we honor what they've done to survive? Take a moment and just name to yourself 3 things you've been doing that's helped keep you going. That will help you in these really stressful times. And number 3, how do we give each other contradictory experiences, different from what we're expecting or what we've experienced in the past? We can also do this for those we serve and support. We can also do this for ourselves by noticing the contradictions. Remember, we're related to the worry warts. So our brain doesn't hold on to the positive, but we need the positive like fuel to keep us going. So this shows up in your foundational manual, pages 20 and 21, which Kara also sent out. So how can we help people not feel alone in the moment? One thing we can do, and this is in that foundational manual on page 24, is something called reflect, honor, and connect. Reflect back what you hear someone saying, releases dopamine and calms the brain. Thank them for sharing, releases oxytocin, which helps them work cooperatively with others, and then connect them with some form of safety and supports. And if you don't know how to do that, Ross Greene has taught us that the open-ended question, how can I help you feel safe, engages curiosity and calm and brings the thinking brain and limbic system together. There's also an expressive therapies continuum, which takes you through a variety of ways you can do this expressively. And at the end of the PowerPoint are some current references on how to use this expressive therapies continuum. We're also going to help people honor what they've done to survive. And the safety script is a really good way to do that. Saying this is a safe place calms the limbic system. I won't let anyone blank. Name what you need them to stop doing, because in so doing, you're showing them that you're going to protect them from this very survival skill they think they need in this environment. So I can't let you do whatever it is you need them to stop doing, because this is our safe place. This is a version we have of it in Spanish. This also is a version where people can write in their own. What is it important that you want to not happen in this environment that we're all sharing together? And then finally, a third one that says, well, if you don't want us to hit, what would you like us to do with our hands instead? And so it allows us to create the replacement behavior. And Eliana Gill gives us a beautiful intervention for people who like to dig their heels in. And we can very gently say, and boy, have I used this a lot during the pandemic with some of my relatives. Woo! Right now, I know it's really important to you that you believe this. And we're going to keep talking about it and working on it together. And finally, how do we give that contradictory experience? The 3 Ps is a really great way to do that. In the 3 Ps, we start with predicting. We have to predict 2 important things. One, what do you think is going to happen? Which sets off your fear center and lets your fear center do its job and get all of its worries out. But then number 2, what do you want to happen? And if we don't predict that, we might miss the cues for when it is happening. Then we're going to practice everything we were going to worry about or we'd like to happen. Literally practice it so you can get procedural memory, which is memory that is done through motion that you feel in your body. And then have a plan B in case all else fails. You've got this backup plan that allows our fear center to know we're working with a net. It loves that. And finally, when you're finished trying some of these new interventions, take a moment and reflect, honor, and get curious. Reflect on what worked, what went well. Honor that there were challenges, because there will be, and name them. That gets them into your cortex, your thinking brain. And then finally, get curious about what you might do differently next time, more effectively, more compassionately, or just differently. That will get your entire brain working together. And all of this matters because, as Dan Siegel teaches us, as the brain is forming, which it is literally doing till the day you die, it is waiting for the world to show it how to structure itself. So in this is the message of hope. Our brain is always learning, growing, and being reshaped. So we are the environment for those we serve and support. How do we want to show up? Thank you for having me.